Is this the year the 49ers finally will beat Patrick Mahomes? I'll ask Tom Walsh next on the Tom Walsh Show. Good morning. Welcome to the Tom Walsh Show, sponsored by the Sleeper app. That's former Raiders offensive coordinator and Super Bowl champion Tom Walsh. I'm just Grant Cohn. Tom, good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Grant.
The Niners play the Chiefs in a couple of days, and it feels like the season is, if they win, that the season is officially starting there. But I'm not sure they're gonna win. A week ago, the Niners played the Seahawks. It feels like a year ago. They won. They won by 12. With 8 minutes left, they were up by 6, and Geno Smith threw an interception. DK Metcalf, I guess, freelanced on that route. What were your takeaways from the Niners beating a pretty bad Seahawks team?
Well, I was finally happy to see the Niners capitalize in the red zone and score a couple of touchdowns. Because up to that point, even during the ballgame, they were like 1 for 8 or 1 for 9 in their last 10 trips or whatever down in the red zone. And then you can't win in the NFL just kicking field goals. And so finally they were able to throw a couple of touchdown passes. So that shows a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of maybe clearing that hurdle and the barrier that they had that was plaguing them with lack of red zone production.
Yeah, they had the two touchdown passes to George Kittle and the fullback dive to Kyle Juszczyk. What do you think of the Niners finally getting those two players involved in the red zone?
Well, I tell you what, I watching other ball games through the weekend and everything. I still just am perplexed at how many quarterbacks and receivers are trying to connect at the back pylon. And, you know, it's like, my goodness, there's something else besides throwing a 50-50 ball or a jump ball. And that is, it's amazing. All these coordinators have all these hours every day, all this tape to study. Yet you think statistically, you'd look at what successes that other teams have in the red zone, in the low red zone, and it's not at the back pylon throwing 50-50 balls. Now, if I had Harold Carmichael, remember the old Eagle receiver at 6'9"? Now, hey, I might throw to the back pylon, you know? Or if I had R.C. Owens when Y.A. Tittle for the 49ers was throwing the alley-oop, and I had R.C. Owens, I would throw that. Yeah, give me a high jumper. Give me a guy who can climb the ladder.
Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, but not to throw it to some 5'11" or 6-foot wide receiver against a 6-foot corner, and say, well, I just threw a 50-50 ball. That's not the place on the field to take a shot with a 50-50 ball, because 6 points is, a little bit more significant than throwing a 50-50 ball.
What concepts did you like in the low red zone? Where did you like to target? The middle of the red zone, the back of at the end zone, in front of the goal line?
Well, the thing about it is now, in terms of looking at coverages as to whether you're expecting man or zone or combo coverages, but you'd like to have layers. The concept was I'd like to have someone right across or at the goal line, and then have someone always roaming the back line of the end zone. And we had concepts where if I was running a post route, for example, with a wide receiver, if he got to the back of the end line and there was no ball, he would square it off and run the back line. Okay, looking for a lane of clear vision between him and the quarterback. So he would now start to just work horizontally across the back of the end line. If I had another route like a corner or whatever, and I didn't get the ball, then I would work to the front pylon of my side of the end zone, so that if the quarterback threw the ball, it would be at the front pylon as opposed to trying to throw the 50-50 ball. If I was in the middle of the field on any other kind of a route and I got to the back of the end zone with no ball, then I would start to break it off into a hook concept, working back to the quarterback from the rear of the end zone to the goal line, looking for a lane to slide into. So we had people still working areas of the field to where they could be a viable option for the quarterback, looking for sight lines and working specific areas where you would not have congestion.
Okay, let me ask you about the upcoming game. You got Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, two of the top offensive coaches in the league. The hallmarks of a Kyle Shanahan offense, it's 21 personnel, a fullback on the field, under center, outside zone, inside zone, play action bootleg. That's been the Shanahan offense for 30 years. What are the hallmarks of an Andy Reid offense if you were describing it to a layperson?
Versatility and the ability to utilize all of his players and the creativity that he shows from week in and week out as to what he can do with personnel groupings, with the motion, with the shift, to be able to create a mismatch. I know you look at what he did in the Super Bowls for several years and how utilizing, you go back to the game when against the Eagles where he used that motion because the Eagles secondary was squirming and not traveling, and he took advantage of it and had 2 touchdown passes with the same concept inside the low red zone. But the other thing is, I look at the roster and I look at who's on the field for the Chiefs on offense. They don't have Pacheco at running back. They're missing Rice at wide receiver. They're starting Juju Schuster-Smith, Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver who's virtually an unknown. Kelsey has been underperforming for most of the season until this last week or two, where he's finally getting back into football shape as opposed to being a real traveler and a jet setter with, what's her name? And Mahomes is not having a great year. Okay, now I'm going to ask you something here. We'll see how well you and your viewers are. The Jacksonville Jaguars, since 2021, have the most drop passes in the National Football League by their receiving corps. Okay? I want you to tell me which team is the second worst with the most drop passes since 2021 in the NFL.
The Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Now, think about this. You got Mahomes at quarterback. He's having a subpar year considering Mahomes' skill set. But go back and look at this. The second most number of drop passes in the NFL since 2021, the Kansas City Chiefs. And yet, how many Super Bowls have they got? So Andy Reid, despite all of them, and look at the injuries, and Pacheco's out, and they got Kareem Hunt in there, and they got, a bunch of other names at running back, just a laundry list of nobodies. And yet they find a way to keep winning. And here's another thing. You look at their productivity and you're thinking they've been in a lot of close ball games so far this year, which is really uncharacteristic of the Chiefs. You're looking for the blowout game. When are they going to put up 45, 50, 52 points and Mahomes is going to go nuts and throws 5 touchdown passes? But, you look at the talent that they have on the field and you don't see anybody Kelsey does make plays. Worthy, can go deep vertically, but he still hasn't really mastered the route tree and the concepts of the NFL. How else are they going to score points? So Andy's got to sit there and find a way to, materialize points and has to come up with other creative means by which to do it because he's not working with star power. He doesn't have the quality of talent on the field other than quarterback compared to the Niners. But yet he finds a way to win. That's the difference to me in the ballgame.
Just how vulnerable are the Chiefs this year? I mean, like you said, Mahomes not having the best year. Kelsey's older. Worthy hasn't really blossomed yet. Like, is this the worst version of the Chiefs the Niners have faced? And is this a team that you would expect to win the Super Bowl? Like, what kind of a challenge is this?
I think it's an uphill battle for the Chiefs. Now, the Niners, I think, should be favored from my perspective. Player to player, the Niners have better talent. I'd say, the Niners probably are favored by a couple points. Home field advantage should be worth 3. But my other determining factor is how many more points is Andy Reid worth than Kyle Shanahan? So, the bookie says, well, the Niners are favored by 1.5 or 2 points. Well, what's the spread between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan in the point differential when it comes down to the fourth quarter, the game's on the line? Who has the best head coach? And that, to me, actually could be a whole difference in the ball game because of what Andy's going to be able to do as the game progresses and how he's going to be able to adjust and what he can see and who's playing well and who's not playing well and to whom can he get the ball to put together a drive to put the Chiefs in position for a field goal to win the game.
I don't know if you saw this stat, but Kyle Shanahan in games decided by 7 points or fewer has a winning percentage of 378 in his career. And of 124 coaches who have been in like 40 regular season games decided by 7 points or fewer, he ranks 119 out of 124. We've talked about him struggling to close. We've seen it in big games. Does that stat surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me at all. The other thing about it is I look at this. Andy Reid, they had a bye last week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's had 2 weeks now, and look at Andy Reid off of a bye. The guy's, I won't say he's perfect, but he's darn close to perfect. You give him that much time to tinker and for his players to get healthy and, get things back together, get in the groove. I got to say that's worth, a touchdown right there.
Why is he so devastatingly tough to beat off a bye week? What is he studying you? Is he creating new things that you haven't seen?
In some respects, he reminds me of the mad scientist, who is, and he does exotic things via formations and motions and shifts, utilizing personnel at various alignments that are not your normal configurations. And so he's going to come up with a formation, with an alignment, with a shift or a motion that's going to put the Niners in peril defensively because he's going to put a player at a different location horizontally across the field, and then he's going to run he'll run a run in the first place and then look at how the defense adjusts, but he's got a pass that's going to go with that play that he's saving, that he's not going to burn it until he knows what the defense is going to do. Then he'll come back with it in the second or even in the fourth quarter, and he has a better idea of what the defense is going to, how they're going to respond to what he showed previously, and that's going to give him his edge in this matchup.
How much pressure is on Nick Sorensen in this matchup? I mean, he's never faced. He's rookie defensive coordinator, never faced anyone like Andy Reid. Got the job because Steve Wilks got fired. Steve Wilks, you remember what he did against Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. So how much pressure is on Nick Sorensen, and what do you expect him? How do you expect him to perform with these adjustments he's going to have to make on the fly?
Well, I tell you, the thing about it is the key thing for the Niners is when are they going to utilize any pressure if they're not getting to Mahomes with the four-man rush, or is he going to try to come up with different disguises or configurations from a secondary and linebacker underneath coverage? What receivers does he choose to double? Is he going to put a linebacker and a safety on Kelsey and try to travel with them? Because Kelsey is not your normal tight end. They're going to line him up anywhere. They'll line him up outside wide receivers. They'll line him up and bring him in motion. They'll bring him across the formation. They'll move him just to see what the secondary does before while the game play clock is running. And so, they'll throw things out at the Niners schematically while Mahomes has got play clock time and he's looking at how the Niners are going to adjust. And then they'll make a switch right there at the line of scrimmage, and he may say something to Kelsey or give a signal to another receiver to run a route predicated upon what he has seen from an adjustment perspective with that motion or shift to give him a clue as to where he wants to go with the ball.
What do you see from Kelsey this year? Is he still Travis Kelsey coming off a bye week? Is he a guy who could have a big game?
I think it's taken him longer to get into the football realm and the football world. Everyone knows what's going on with him off the field. He's traveling the world with all these shows that, Taylor Swift is doing, and he's in New York at the tennis matches. He's at the playoff games, baseball. And, the thing about it is his job is football. And so he has not been devoting as much time to football now as he did pre-Taylor Swift. And it shows on the field. I'm sorry to say that, hey, it may be a great distraction for him, but, his productivity and his performance hasn't been up to par as what it was prior to Taylor Swift. And then the ironic thing is, I remember Mahomes making a comment when he was kind of struggling offensively. And now that he's got 2 kids at home and a newborn and all that, he says, I'm not getting the sleep I'm used to get before I had kids. So he found that that was also impacting his play because he wasn't getting as good a night's sleep as he was previously. So there's a lot of factors that go into why all of a sudden you're not playing at the top of your game.
I want to ask you, I want to come back to a scheme question with Andy Reid. We've talked about this before. In the Super Bowl 4 years ago, I asked Andy Reid, what are the hallmarks of a Kyle Shanahan offense and what do you admire about it? And he said, it's kind of a throwback offense. The quarterback's under center. There's a fullback on the field. With Andy Reid, I mean, he coached with Mike Holmgren. He's much older than Kyle Shanahan, but he seems like his offense is much more comfortable out of the shotgun and they can run a full run game out of the shotgun. Like, is that something that is unique about him?
Well, the thing about it is he realizes the game has changed. Personnel has changed. The players they're getting from the college game through the draft have been involved in different styles of offensive now than they were years ago. And he's evolved. If you don't evolve, eventually, you've got to get out of the stagecoach era and into the supersonic transport era. And in some respects, Kyle's still traveling by, covered wagon, and Andy's out there with, the supersonic transport in his mind and his process of thinking, and he's evolved. He's staying with and even ahead of the time, and he's the innovator as opposed to the other guy who's still, playing with the same deck of cards that he had 15 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like Andy Reid has evolved much further away from what he was doing, what Mike Holmgren was doing with the Packers in 1996, as opposed to how far Kyle Shanahan has evolved away from what his dad was doing with the Broncos in 1996.
Well, Grant, I think the key thing also is that Andy looks at the talent he has, and he's been able to make adjustments to that talent, and he's not going to pass up a great player who, quote unquote, did not traditionally fit his system, because Andy's system is in a fluid state of motion all the time. He utilizes the talent that he gets, and he's willing to make the adjustments in his design and his concepts to take advantage of the talent. Whereas I think if you look at Kyle, not in a negative fashion, but Kyle looks for people who fit his system. So therefore, he has passed up over the years a lot of talented players because he didn't think they fit his system, rather than take the talented player and say, okay, now how do I tweak my system and redesign it, reconfigure it to take advantage of this great talent that comes along, maybe generationally, as opposed to passing up the Mahomes or the other great players because, he doesn't quite fit my offense. I'd say, you know what, hey, we need to tweak the offense to fit the talent, because those generational talents come along once in a million years, and your system, it can't last forever. It has to evolve, stay with the times. It has to move and be fluid.
Hey, Kyle Shanahan could have had Patrick Mahomes, traded down, still could have had Patrick Mahomes, but Mahomes played in the air raid offense. He was in the shotgun in college. He wasn't under center. Kyle couldn't watch him turn his back to the defense and do play action bootleg rollout throws, which you could see from Trey Lance at North Dakota State. So he was not a consideration. Andy Reid, who came from West Coast offense, which is no shotgun, looks at Patrick Mahomes. Maybe not just him and the general manager, Brett Veach. They trade up, they get him, they incorporate the air raid into their offense. They win 3 Super Bowls.
Well, look, the other thing is that another quarterback when he came out, and you and I had discussed him at the time, also this kid Josh Allen from Fireball, California, who played University of Wyoming after he played at Butte Community College. A lot of people thought this guy will never make it. He's a great athlete. He's big, strong, has a powerful arm, but he'll never, quote unquote, be developed into an NFL quarterback. And you look at how, he's prospered to a degree at Buffalo, utilizing his skill set. And, I have to laugh. I look at Minnesota this year, and you look at what they've done with Sam Darnold. Okay, now Sam has matured as a person, matured as a quarterback, gained experience, but you look at, He's been with the Jets. He's been with the Niners. He's been with, I don't know, whomever else. I mean, like Carolina, maybe. I don't know. But, now all of a sudden, it's clicking. So, you can never say never about a guy, but what is now making Darnold be more successful than he's been previously is the combination of the players he has on the field, his own maturity, and the proper coaching. So there are a lot of elements that go together to make that, success for a player.
What do you make of Sam Darnold with the Vikings real quick? I mean, do you feel like he's going to come back down to earth? Do you think he's figured something out? Do you think, are they for real?
I tell you, you got to like their defense, number one. Number two, he's got some great talent at wide receiver. It helps to have guys who can make plays for you because there are more great catches in the NFL than there are great throws. Okay, let's be honest. Okay, you've got to have a guy who can get open, who can create separation, who can make plays, who can run after the catch, or who can get beyond the defense over the top and be able to make the play. And then if the quarterback gets the ball anywhere in the zip code, this guy will come down with it. You've got to have those players. And see, that's another thing. When I look at the Niners, I look at the receiving core, and, Purdy's up there statistically with ratings and all that. But, this is why I would go back and play tight man coverage against the Niners from a defensive perspective, because I would challenge the receivers to have to work to get open. Because you know what? They don't have McCaffrey in this ball game, so they cannot just run 900 little dodge routes, choice routes, and option routes to him against a linebacker or a safety, knowing that McCaffrey's going to get open, bang, hit it with a throw that's 5 yards across the line of scrimmage, and he's going to run for 10, 12 yards after that. That element's out of the offense. And a couple weeks ago, I thought I saw a stat that the Niners were second to last in the National Football League in getting balls to their running backs as opposed to the previous year. So their passing game has changed dramatically without McCaffrey. So I'm going to challenge those receivers to get open. I'm not going to play soft zone against them and let Kyle run his 8-man play action passes where he's got deep crossers and guys that are coming open when he took the top off the defense on one side of the field. And here comes a 22-yard crossing route from Kittle or Debo or somebody across the formation. No, zones are the best friend of the Niners. Man-to-man, tight coverage, not their best friend. So Sunday, if I'm KC, hey, what do they got? McDuffie at corner, and I don't even know who else is in their secondary. But I tell you what, I'm going to line up and play man coverage tight. I'll play bump and run. I'll dare you to complete the ball over the top. I'll dare you to have a receiver get separation away from me. I'm going to make them work for their catches. I'm going to make them work to create separation. I'm not going to give Brock the easy throw. I'm going to have narrow windows because I'm going to be, white on rice against these receivers and stick to them, plaster them, and force Brock to make a pinpoint throw and force these receivers to create separation.
Also, we've seen in the Super Bowl with Spagnuolo against the Vikings with Brian Flores, if a defense puts 6 defenders on the line of scrimmage and presents like they might bring a blitz and then just rotates after the snap, Kyle Shanahan will feel extremely hesitant calling play action passes. In fact, he'll probably go spread shotgun, which is the weakest part of his playbook.
Well, the other thing I want to ask you this now, too. How good is the Niner run game going to be this week? I think up to this point, the Chiefs might be allowing 85, 87 yards rushing per game. So they're not too shabby against the run. And they've been in a lot of close ball games, so it's not like the opponent has had to throw the ball to come back from 20, 24 points from behind because the Chiefs have been in a lot of close ball games. And I think they're only giving up like about 220 yards through the air as well to the opposing quarterback. So they're playing pretty good defense. The other thing is that show dog concept that you talked about. You got Pooney playing right guard. You got a young kid. I can take that defensive tackle for the Chiefs, what's his name, Chris Jones, and line him up, run stunts, run games, run show dog schemes, bring pressure off the edge, make Brock have to read, or whomever's re-miking the defense, check it, and then bring pressure, show pressure left and bring pressure from the right and pull out these guys on the left. And I can give you a million different looks that are going to challenge the 49ers mentally as well as physically.
Yeah, and we don't know if Jordan Mason's going to play, although I would assume he will. It seems like the Niners are sort of pushing players who were 80% healthy to be out there. Isaac Guerrero had that one long run. But yeah, the Chiefs are giving up 3.7 yards per carry. They have a really good run defense. How do you see this game playing out? You said earlier that the Niners should be favored, but the difference in coaching is worth a significant amount of points.
I have a hard time seeing this game become a blowout or a big scoring game with both teams just cranking out points, and you're looking at. I don't see a 42-37 or 38 ball game. I'm looking at something like 20-16. I just think it's going to come down to a field goal contest, and I got to go with Kansas City. Somehow Andy finds a way to get Butler down there to kick a field goal as the clock is hitting doubles, all goose eggs, all zeros across the board. Bam, the ball's going through the sticks, and it's a field goal for the win. And I tell you, I think it's going to come down to field goal.
Right, great point, because I mean, really, the Niners could be down to their third kicker, Anders Carlson.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And the strategy about getting to a field goal position where the kicker can make the kick, Andy has a way to, and Mahomes understands the chains and who he's got and where to throw the ball. And, I tell you, despite the Niners being favored, it's hard for me to lean against Mahomes. I mean, his winning percentage as a quote unquote underdog quarterback is almost as good as when he's favored to win. I mean, it's like 79% wins when he's favored to win, and it's like 76% wins when he's the underdog. So there's not a lot of difference between Mahomes as an underdog or Mahomes as a favorite at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think with him too, I'd have to go look it up. I would imagine when he does lose, he often doesn't lose by a lot. And if he's in these one-score games, well, that's sort of the 49ers kryptonite, because Kyle Shanahan, as I said earlier, win percentage is .378 when the game is decided by 7 or fewer points. So if it's a 20-16 game, that sounds like a game the Niners lose and the Chiefs win.
Well, the bottom line too, Grant, I think comes down to me. I'm interested to see what is Kyle going to do differently in situations like the third quarter of the Super Bowl last year, after the interception that Mahomes threw on the opening possession the Chiefs had. And of the 11 plays Kyle called in that quarter, or 12 plays, like 9 of them or 10 of them were passes and only 2 or 3 runs. Will he have learned anything from that stretch right there? And will that help him rethink how he's going to approach the game if he gets into a situation where he's already ahead by, say, 10 points, or they get up early? Will that change his play calling tendencies predicated upon what experiences that he's had in previous matchups against the Chiefs?
Well, it's going to be interesting if Steve Spagnuolo can shut down the Niners run game. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Jordan Mason. Christian McCaffrey won't be out there. They have a really good run defense. And if they can show these 6-man fronts and discourage Kyle Shanahan from calling play action and sort of get the Niners into a one-dimensional drop-back passing game, I feel like that's pretty close to checkmate already.
Well, the other thing too now, you got to look at the protection packages that the Niners run, and then how they handle the stunts. Are they going to have to use Kittle to chip on the edge to help secure for McKivitz at tackle? Or is the back going to have to set over on that side to be able to help him out? Or Pooney at guard? How are they going to handle any 2-man and 3-man games on that side with passing off stunts? Am I going to need a back to be able to police the pocket? How much more conservative am I going to have to get in my pass patterns, because I have to keep people in to help with protection if it comes into a one-dimensional offense?
Certainly. One more thing. You mentioned that the Chiefs should be playing a lot of man-to-man coverage. Obviously, it worked for them in the Super Bowl. They shut down both Debo and Kittle, all of Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk easily. That's probably one of the reasons the Niners drafted Ricky Pearsall. They opened his practice window this week. He's a full participant in practice. Do you think the Niners will have some temptation to play him in this game?
That would be a reach from my perspective. To just take him, and considering what he's been through off the field, and then just put him out there against the Chiefs for his first opportunity to really play in 3 months or whatever, that would be, a great leap of faith, by the Niners to think that the kid will be able to have some effectiveness. I mean, how much range of motion and strength does he really have in coming back from the injury and the wound to be able to play football and to be able to handle contact?
It seems like a risky play for me. I want to ask you some questions about Tom Brady, but before, I want to just tell everyone the show is sponsored by the Sleeper app. I'm giving away 2 tickets to next week's game against the Cowboys, and I'm giving them away next Monday. So if you want to be entered in the giveaway, download the Sleeper app, use promo code COHN, COHN. You're automatically entered. I'm also giving away a signed Ricky Pearsall jersey right there. Same thing. Download the app, use promo code COHN, COHN. I'm a generous guy. I'm giving away stuff. Tom Brady is now a part owner of the Raiders. What is going on here? What's his play? What is this opportunity for him? And then I want to ask you what you think of him as an announcer later.
Okay, the one thing about which I think Mark Davis, who's handling the organization now, he's going to they need a quarterback. Okay, I mean, let's be honest. They really don't have the signal caller. One of the reasons why Devontae Adams is back with the Jets in New York is because he's looking at who the Raiders have throwing balls to him. It's like, I'll be damned if I'm going to hang around this joint and the guy can't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, And so I think that Mark's going to say, okay, Tom, I want you to go out there and evaluate all the draft prospects at the quarterback position. You write up the reports and you write up this, and then he's going to have the scouts and the other people do it. And then maybe the Niners will go after the Raiders will go after a free agent at quarterback in addition to drafting the guy in the first round. And the other thing is, you got to be able to, that's important. And I think Brady obviously feels like he wants to be involved in the game at a higher level of ownership. So he thinks that probably having this percentage, I think of the 10% buy-in that he and his group is making, he's got 5% of the buy-in. So I think that he probably believes down the road, when push comes to shove, he'll be able to put together a group, a money group, kind of like what the Redskins did, or the Commanders, or whatever they're going by, to the Washington football team did, where they're able to bring in guys like Magic Johnson and other guys and put together a $6 or $7 billion pool of money. And find an individual who can be the majority owner, to have at least 30% or more of the control of the stock in the club, and he'll be an owner.
So he's looking at potentially Mark Davis as a guy who won't be owning that team his whole life.
I would believe so. The other thing is, Mark's mother theoretically is kind of like Denise York. She owns the club. Mark is like Jed. Mark is operating the club, but because how's Mark going to pay the inheritance taxes and all that? And I'm sure the league is working on that and has had a concern, because I know a couple of years ago they were really concerned about how many clubs had to be sold because owners passed away, and those who inherited the club did not have the liquidity to be able to pay all the inheritance taxes, and so then the clubs have to be sold. And so the league then turned it around and said, we're not doing a very good job of consulting and assisting current ownerships with succession plans and how to handle the inheritance tax situations. And so then the league at that point said, we got to find a way to keep the owners we like owning the clubs when the original owner passes away. And that's a question it's like Mark doesn't have, children. He's not married. So I don't know what he has set up for his inheritances and everything, and who has money to be able to pay the inheritance tax on a franchise that now is going to be worth, $5, $6, $7 billion by the time, it comes push to shove.
Let me ask you this. What do you think of the job Tom Brady's doing as an announcer, and how can he be an owner and an announcer at the same time? How does this affect his other job?
The hardest part is, and the league already has stipulated, that he cannot go into visiting team facilities. He cannot view tapes. He cannot visit with interviewed players. He can't do this. All of a sudden, he has to rely upon third parties to give him information, and then what his knowledge of the game, obviously, and his experiences. But he's calling them basically like cold turkey up there in the press box, and it's not like he can sit there and say, "Well, I talked to so and so the other day," or Jerry Jones said this, or Mark Davis said that, or Coach Antonio Pierce told me this. He's not allowed to do that, and so he's calling the game, but it's kind of in a sterile environment because he doesn't really have. It's not like Troy Aikman who can come to practice, or Troy can sit down with a player, Troy can sit down with a coach, Troy can sit down with a coordinator, Troy can talk to an owner. Tom Brady can't do any of that, but he still has to call the game.
Joseph Ehrenberg says, fire Kyle, hire Tom Walsh.
I think that ship sailed a long time ago. I mean, it's like, I don't think they have a senior citizen circuit league or something like that, for us old geezers, And then all these
Joseph
young dudes, they think all of us who are a little bit older now took stupid pills overnight, so we don't understand the game anymore, and it's gone by us and all that kind of stuff, and they just think we're a bunch of old fogies,
Yeah, like the Jets offense really knows what they're doing over there. Joseph Ehrenberg says Taylor Swift will be the Niners' difference maker. Maybe.
Hey, now, let me throw this at you. It would not shock me. Think about how many billions of dollars that woman is worth. Now, I could see her one day saying, you know what? I'd like to own an NFL team. She has the finances. She's got the money. What's to stop her from putting together a group of people and saying, hey, why not?
Yeah, it could be her, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all together.
That could be her hobby.
Anthony says, with everyone healthy, Niners would still lose to Kansas City. Frowny face. Gold Tau says, who have we beaten this season? Who have the Chiefs beaten this season? Let's look at who the Chiefs have beaten so far this season. The Ravens, the Bengals, the Falcons, the Chargers, and the Saints. Those are 4 good teams, and the Saints.
Here's the thing and now, of course, they beat the Ravens early. I think that was a season opener or whatever. But I tell you what, the Ravens are kind of like the dark horse, I think. You look at what they're doing with Derrick Henry and how Lamar Jackson's playing, and the Ravens defense is pretty darn good. I tell you what, come playoff time, they're going to be knocking on the door. You look at how they're running the ball. See, that's the other thing. If I can take Lamar Jackson and not put the game on his shoulders, but allow him to improvise and let him play within, a tighter parameter, he can be very successful. I don't want him to have to throw the ball 35 or 40 times a game. No. I want Derrick Henry to run the ball 25 times a game, and Lamar can make a couple scrambles and make a couple plays on bootlegs and nakeds and zone reads and all that, and then run a good play action game with him off of the great run fakes. And, you're basically looking at what Kyle would like to do with Brock Purdy, but he doesn't have McCaffrey anymore. So now how can Kyle manufacture points and yards in the run game and with play action game and then also his ball control pass offense, he has not developed a running back who can be even a shadow of what McCaffrey is in the passing game.
So it sounds like you're saying you expect Baltimore to represent the AFC potentially in the Super Bowl. What about the NFC? Which team do you think is currently the favorite to go to the Super Bowl?
Oh, I tell you still cannot discount Detroit in my mind. The other thing I think, 14 of the 17 games the Lions play are in dome stadiums. Mm-hmm. And you look at statistically how Goff has played in the previous years indoors as opposed to outdoors. And his quarterback rating, I think, in a dome facility is like 106, 107. And his quarterback rating when he's playing outdoors on grass or turf or whatever is like 82 or 83. So there's a marked difference between how Goff plays indoors. He doesn't throw it. He's not a Matthew Stafford with a rifle for an arm. He's more of a touch and finesse kind of passer. So his success in a dome, obviously, and then when he gets out of doors, then all of a sudden it's a different world because, you've got weather elements also coming into play. But he's got 14 of 17 games in a dome stadium. So I kind of I'm leaning a little bit towards Detroit.
Sean Shepard says, Kyle is out-coached by defensive coordinators that don't respect his setups and fakes. Those DCs play man and smash through his feints. It's like boxers that don't respect your fakes. You have to get physical back until he stops. Kyle freezes. You mentioned earlier that zone defense is what the 49ers want to see. Can you explain that to people? Like they want people to rush forward and play soft zone. Why?
Well, the one thing in zone, see, when you're zoning, and then you can drop with, in the old days, teams would spot drop defensive players. They'd want somebody in the weak flat. They want someone in the strong flat. They want someone in the weak hook, the strong hook, the hash area. But see, nowadays, when you're playing zone, you try to play matchup zones. You're going to pattern read, and you're going to adjust your drops predicated upon what receivers are doing. And so, but still, you have bigger windows into which to throw the ball in zone, and guys are looking for voids in zones. So receivers can, if I'm running an in route and all of a sudden, when I make my break, if there's a defender in that area, then I'm going to take the next window. I'm going to keep running and find the next big hole and then work my numbers back with the quarterback. So I can make adjustments. If it comes down to man coverage, especially tight man coverage, like from bump and run, now we have to defeat the defensive back with moves and stems and feelings. Then when I get to my breaking point, I've got to find a way to create separation. And I've got to have another gear. I've got to staircase my routes. I got to have some kind of stems and feelings in my route to be able to shake the guy. I just cannot run and make it a track meet. That doesn't work, And the Niners don't have those kind of receivers. And so that's why I would challenge them. And also the other great thing about playing man is I can, especially tight coverages, I can disrupt your timing. I can jam you at the line of scrimmage. I don't want to give you free access from the line of scrimmage. And all of that also allows my pass rush to win for me because Brock may have to hold the ball a little bit longer, waiting for somebody to get separation. You look at some plays when they show the dome, the blip view, and I'm watching a pattern. I'm going, oh my God, there is not a whisper of air between the DB and any wide receiver on the field. Where does the kid go with the ball? There's nobody who's winning the route. And
what do you think of the Niners spending all that money on wide receivers? Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and they're struggling to get open.
Yeah, see, this is where McCaffrey made all those other guys better. Now without McCaffrey, that's a major factor just taken off the table. That'd be like, you're sitting down to have dinner and all of a sudden you go, where's the beef on the plate? There's no meat. I've got vegetables, I got potatoes, I got salad, but hey, with McCaffrey was the meat of the offense in the play action passing game, the run game, third down and short, dodge routes, choice routes. He was a key factor in the red zone, the low red zone, the high red zone. There was always the McCaffrey factor. Now you take that away, and now all of a sudden, all of the flaws and the foibles of all the other players now become more exposed because they now become the featured players. Whereas before they were augmenting and complementing McCaffrey. Now without McCaffrey, they are it. And all of a sudden, you start to see all the warts that they have, so to speak.
And it's so funny because like Ayuk wanted the contract that would indicate that he's the number one guy, that he's a go-to guy. Deebo wanted that too, but it seems like now that they have the opportunity to be that, neither one really can deliver in that way.
Correct. And the thing about it is, Ayuk probably would be a very good number 2 receiver or maybe a 1B receiver. I mean, is he as good as the Minnesota crew? Is he as good as Chase in Cincinnati? Is he as good as CD Lamb in Dallas? Is he as good as a couple of these younger kids now who are lighting up the league? He's not quite in that caliber. No. And then the Niner passing concepts, that they're trying to do offensively are not geared to a drop back concept. They feed more off of play action than they do pure drop back concepts.
Mm.
And that's a big
so they're schemed open to a degree. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
So they're schemed open to a degree, these high priced wide receivers.
Well, play action pass is a great way to get guys open because now I've got linebacker stuff up to play run. I've got, a big void in the middle of the field. That's why Kyle throws so many in routes. He's got the linebacker stepping up to play the run action. Now at 15 to 17 yards, you talk about voids, just like the Grand Canyon. But if I'm playing man-to-man, that Grand Canyon doesn't exist because the same thing with the shifts and motions. When the Niners bring the formation, change of strength and everything, and they bring a tight end across or a wide receiver across in motion, defenses are checking to a different zone coverage. If I'm playing the under front and you're lined up in the pro set, I'm playing cover 2. The minute I change the strength and goes to slot or whatever, I go to another digit in my coverage tree, and cover 2 goes to cover 3. Cover 2 goes to 1 adjust. It doesn't go from 2 to 2 because it's not a balanced defensive front. Same thing from the over scheme. I can line up and say, we're going to play over wide, cover 3 sky. Well, then you could change the strength all of a sudden. Now I'm checking another coverage because I'm not playing 3 sky against that front because it does not configure with my defensive front personnel. But if I'm playing man, I don't care what you do with motion. You go, I go. We play the old days at the Ready. We play the cat defense. I got this cat, you got that cat. I don't care if you go in motion. I don't care if you shift. All that is out the window because it's all that window dressing is not going to make me check my coverage. It's not going to change my assignments. I know who I have. I'm going to line up and play man against man, you against me. So I'm not going to have a bust in zone coverage where the DB goes, well, I did not get the check call. And that's why all of a sudden the guy's running free down the field because all of a sudden they went from a cover 2 to cover 3 or cover 3 to cover 4. And some guy didn't get the check, didn't make the adjustment off of motion. Bam, a receiver pops open for a 55-yarder. In man-to-man, that doesn't happen.
Tom, we got a question from Jesse Naylor. He wants to know, Chiefs run man about 30%, but press over 50% of the time. Can you talk about how press paired with zone can help them versus the Niners as well?
Well, I would pick my shots of when I'm going to play press man-to-man. You can't line up and play it every time. The other thing is, a lot of teams nowadays, if I'm playing press coverage, a receiver's a route, I can give him a signal, all of a sudden it goes to a 9 route, a vertical. Okay, if I'm in the slot, all of a sudden you see all these teams run slot fades, and so you've got to be able to pick and choose as to when you want to play the press coverage. Also, I've got to look at my matchups and say, how good is my corner going to be against that wide receiver in bump and run coverage? Do I want to be in press man coverage when it's 3rd and 9 and have one corner off and one corner up? Do I want to play press man over the top and I can stick a safety on that side to play a high-low double coverage concept and cheat the safety and play between the hash and the numbers to give them help? Sometimes I'd rather play 2-man as opposed to single high man press coverage because now I can line up inside technique, and the Niners love to run slants. So I'm going to want to take away the slants. Kyle does not run sluggo routes. And see, one of the things I would do on 3rd and 3 to 4, get into a slot formation or whatever, and I would run, because they always think, okay, here comes the quick slant. Here comes the little peek route, the little dart route inside. I'd run a double move with my inside slot guy, because that corner or that nickel safety is going to jump thinking the slant route's coming. And I'd run the slant, pop it over the top, and go sluggo right off the bat and say, I'm going to not allow you to jump my routes, and guess what I'm going to do? And send the message early and at least put the fear of God in you by running the double move and make you think about how aggressively you want to play me.
That would be a good way to use Brandon Ayuk. Let's see if he can get his first touchdown catch of the season this week against the Chiefs. So far, Jared Goff has more touchdown catches than he does.
$30 million, and the guy has never been caught the ball in the end zone this whole season.
Well, maybe he'll get an opportunity. Tom, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I always appreciate it. It was great.
Well, I appreciate it. I thank you for the opportunity, Grant, and wish you all the best for the weekend and everything.
All right. I'll be down at Santa Clara later today. I'll check in with you guys then, and make sure you watch the 4-man front today with Jesse Naylor, the coach, and Ryan Hensley on Jesse's channel tonight at 7 o'clock Pacific. See you guys then.